So the Pistons are 3-0. Blake Griffin just had a monster game against the 76ers. Andre Drummond and Joel Embiid got into it on Twitter because the NBA is awesome. And as of right now, the Pistons are looking awesome at 3-0. Can they maintain this throughout the season? Well, I will say now that after looking into a few numbers, while taking them all with a grain of salt, because of course, again, only 3 games into the season, but still, after looking into a few numbers, looking at some highlights, on top of just things that I've noticed when I've watched them live, I don't love everything that this Pistons team is doing in terms of some sets and the way they're using Andre Drummond, but at the same time, there are some things to definitely like about them. Number one, that thing being, we may have reached peak Blake Griffin, because through 3 games, I think Blake has shown an assertiveness, shooting, and also some athleticism that we perhaps have not seen from him in a few seasons, right? The guy has dealt with some injuries as he's gotten older, and the guy who was dunking on everybody's head in his rookie season, I mean, that dude doesn't pop up as much. But even so, it seems like he has a little bit more of a bounce in his step. They've run a lot of stuff where he's just ran like ISOs against opposing power forwards, and they've even had some plays where he'll get a screen from the center to get the other team's center switched onto him, and he's killing these guys off the dribble. I mean, the play that he made to beat the Sixers with like 5 seconds left, sure, part of it was because Amir Johnson blew the assignment a little bit, but, you know, Blake just got a head of steam going to the rim, and no one could really get in front of the guy, and why would you want to? Because he's 250 pounds. So, yeah, I mean, it does seem like Blake is a little faster. His handle and his passing ability are always very good, and I will talk about his passing here. And we got to talk about the shooting. I mean, this is something that crept up for the last couple of years where he's shot like 5 threes a game, around 34%. Or I shouldn't say last couple of years, it was mainly just last season. But we saw that he made an improvement, and it seems like, while of course he's not going to shoot 60% for the year, he could have taken another step to where he's going to be like an above average 3-point shooter. And if he's going to be that, then yeah, this could really be the best version of Blake Griffin we've ever seen, and he may be once again like approaching the conversation of being a top like 12 or 13 player, because there was a stretch of time where I think he really was up there among the best players in the league, and, you know, past couple of years through injuries and whatever the hell else dipped down a little bit. But, you know, this could be the new Blake, and if that's the case, then I think that could be enough for the Pistons to be like at least a 45 and maybe even a little bit more than that winning team, because the Eastern Conference is kind of weak, and, you know, the roster around him is talented enough between Drummond and Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith and my guy Luke Kennard, if he can get an opportunity to play, and they've always been good when Reggie Bullock has played, and Stanley Johnson is at least shooting threes this season. They haven't exactly gone in like crazy, but he's attempting them a little bit more, which is good. So there are some things to like about this team. I also think while their offense has not been super dynamic so far, I think they've had little wrinkles of stuff that could develop throughout the year. A lot of it are Blake Griffin handoffs, which I mentioned earlier. He'll use those with like Reggie Bullock. I would expect Langston Galloway to get some of those. Glenn Robinson, he was a pretty good shooter for the Pacers if he can play a little bit more. Kennard once again. I also mentioned the Blake and like Drummond pick and roll, or the Blake and Zaza pick and roll, which puts the 2 opposing big guys in an awkward position. I think that has potential. And then besides that, I mean, it's mainly just been like Blake post-ups without like getting a real switch, or it's just been simple like pick and rolls with Drummond, or the occasional flare screen with like one of these wings. So the offense hasn't been too crazy, but they've been able to figure it out anyway. Also, Reggie Jackson's making his 3s so far, which is good. And Ish Smith's 3s have been kind of out of this world at 50+%. So, yeah, those are my positive takes of this team. Now it's time to get to the negatives, because like I said, not everything about what I've seen so far I've loved. Number one, they are 3-0, but all 3 of those games have been close. 2 of those games were against bad teams, And the game that they won against the good team, Blake Griffin had to put up 50 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. Also, Philly is perhaps not as good right now as they were last year because they're dealing with the whole Markelle Fultz thing right now. So that's number one. So it's not like this 3-0 is just against like good teams and all that. Although Philly's still pretty decent, so give them credit. The other thing is, I don't really love the way that Drummond is being used right now. Now again, it's only 3 games, so don't take too many stats too hard. But his post-ups are up, his rolls to the basket are down. And that is probably the worst thing you can see for Drummond because the guy is just not a good post-up player. He just isn't. He is always among the league's worst in the post-up percentile because he just doesn't have the moves. He doesn't have hook shots. He doesn't have turnarounds. He doesn't have up and unders. The guy just simply doesn't, okay? And if Dwayne Casey believes he does, because there are a few people who believe Drummond can post up, then that's going to be a problem. That's number one. Number two, it seems like the put Drummond at the top of the key and let him pass the ball to cutters and handoff plays and stuff, that's still like kind of there a little bit, but it's definitely not where it was a few seasons back, or last year I should say. Now part of that is because Blake is better at those things than Drummond, but I would still like to see those things at least when Drummond's in the game without Blake, and that hasn't seemed to really be a thing so far. Again, Drummond's rolls to the basket are down a little bit, which is not a good thing. Drummond's also shooting threes now, which, I mean, if you can make them, fine, but I'm a little afraid that he's already taking 2.5 threes a game. I would prefer if he was like a little more hesitant and he only shot like above the break threes or wide open corner threes when Blake is like doing stuff around the rim. Okay? And also, if I am looking at some of the Blake highlights, the spacing has not always been that good. Like a lot of the time, Drummond is chilling like right there, and Blake just contorts his body in that weird way he always does to figure it out with the opposing big man not being that far away. So if Drummond could make like 15 footers, like maybe you don't have to make threes, but just make some mid-rangers to keep the opposing big at least a little out of the paint to help out Blake. Yeah, I am a little fearful of Drummond right now because I think he made a lot of progress last year offensively. And again, it's only 3 games, but just based on what we've seen so far, a lot of the good stuff may be gone. Now, he is making free throws at 63%. He's only shot 3 a game so far, but it seems like that may be holding itself up, so that's good, but yeah, a little disheartening if we're not going to get the passing and whatever else Drummond was doing last season that was working out for him. Yeah, I think this team, they are 3-0, but I don't think it's been perfect, and really, I think you can pretty much say with this team that the reason they have the record they do right now is because Blake Griffin has been really good at basketball. And if Blake Griffin is going to fall back down to earth to, you know, better than what he was at least the last couple seasons, because it just seems like that's what it's going to be now, but not this, because we can't expect this all season, then yeah, I wouldn't expect this team to light the Eastern Conference on fire, but they could still be a pretty decent team. So I think that's my take on these guys. Other little things, again, I expect Ish Smith's three-pointer to fall back down to earth, although if he's going to be like an actual shooter now, that would be huge. Reggie Bullock hasn't been making his shots, and he's been historically a good three-point shooter, so we could expect his shots to drop. Same thing with Galloway. I don't know much about Bruce Brown. He's been getting, well, he played at least 1 game. I don't really know much about him. Zaza as a backup center for 15 minutes a game. I think that's fine. So yeah, basically, some things to like, some things to not like. I guess to sum it all up again, the things to like are Blake Griffin putting on his LeBron James impression. That might be the only one thing I really love, and then everything else I'm kind of a little iffy on. The way Drummond's being used and other things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's a good start, so that's nice. But we'll have to see if they can keep this up once, Blake falls back down to earth, Drummond plays a little better, and whatever the hell else.